I'm not on screen. I don't think. Hey, everybody, and welcome to True Crime Paranormal. I'm Kristi Brower here with my co host, Katie Weaver. She's also, of course, my partner in crime and my sister.
Right. We have
Welcome
plenty
to our
going on.
Wednesday night live stream, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just getting started. We have some stuff to share with you, but as usual, we do our little check in. So, Katie, how are you?
Oh, I'm so good. I actually went on another cemetery adventure today.
You did?
I did. I didn't film it because we're going to have to go back together. But I was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming this morning with my
Oh,
husband. He had some work there and I just rode along because, Jackson.
right.
And while we were there, I thought, I've never been to the cemetery here. And so my husband isn't as big of a cemetery enthusiast.
It's an
So
acquired taste.
yeah, and so I really had to, kind of force him to take me over there, to be honest. But we went to the cemetery. That is the wildest place. I mean, we saw some amazing things over the weekend in our cemetery tour.
Hmm.
This one blew my freaking mind. It's
Really?
literally carved into the side of the mountain in between ski slopes at Snow King Ski Mountain.
Ooh, we have to.
Mountain, that's not correct, but yeah.
Mhm.
And, like, some of it, he was mad that we were doing in our car because you almost need to be in a pickup or an SUV to even do it.
Wow.
It is the craziest, coolest thing ever. So, anyway, we'll be going back together because you guys
Oh,
have to
good.
see this,
Oh, I
but
can't wait.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So that's how
And
I am. I'm
well,
just,
awesome.
basking in the glow of yet another cemetery.
There you go. Well, and just so you know, only some of the cemetery tour has been released. We
Mhm,
released some of it. We have a couple more shows coming out of it. You just have
mhm,
to know we were in one of the most remote places you can get.
mhm,
And so we just didn't always have service. So some of what we're going to do, we're going to cover on a pre-recorded show, but we have lots more coming from the cemetery tour, but we sure had a
mhm.
good time.
Oh, man. We drove so deep into the wilderness that we didn't have service for many, many hours.
Yeah. Our poor sister who was driving us was kind of terrified.
Mm. I don't think she knew what she signed up for.
I
I
assured her that I knew where we were going, and I was really keeping my fingers crossed the whole time that I actually did.
well, hopefully we can talk her into going on another one.
Yeah, I hope so.
Mars said she's sitting the next one out.
Oh, is she? Oh,
Yeah,
well.
we'll
Well, we
see.
had a great time, and you wanna
Right.
keep an eye out for some more shows coming from that cemetery tour because we have more stories to tell. You may have noticed that we
Mhm.
released an episode last night, which was our Stephanie Crane episode.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we went to the Chalice and Salmon area was to cover the Stephanie Crane case because she, of course, went missing out of Chalice.
Yeah.
And Sunday was the 27th anniversary of her disappearance. So if you haven't seen that episode, definitely go watch it. Katie gives a very specific read about what happened to Stephanie Crane. And
Mhm.
we remember it very clearly because we were kids living here in Idaho when it happened. And
Mhm.
it was just one of those cases that you'll never forget if you lived around here when it occurred. You know, it's kind of like the Daybell case or the Dior Coons
Yeah.
case.
Absolutely. Want to say
Yeah.
hi to our chatters. We're live streaming from YouTube and from Facebook. We're doing double duty, but all of your
Yeah.
chat just shows up in one place for us in our software. So we're just seeing you all at once. So we want to welcome you, Kimberly and RJ and Glowing Ember, and hi Nat and
Yeah.
Mrs. Chronic Chronicles. I love it. I would love to know why that's your name. I love it.
I know.
Um,
I'm always super curious about your screen names on here. That's great.
I know you guys have some cool ones. I'm very generic. It's just, well, my name.
Me too. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I know a little more creative than me.
Yeah. Well, except for our true crime paranormal, of course. But
Well, of
anyway,
course, there's
so I guess
that.
that's more creative. I guess I'll give us that. But
Yeah. So we have just a couple of Daybell updates. Not a lot, but Katie, do you want to share what's coming
yeah.
up?
So there is court at the end of this month. It looks like it's on the 24th. And that It sounds like there will be a conversation about the joinder at that time. The idea that the prosecutor has asked to join Lori and Chad's cases, and of course, Chad's attorney has said loudly that he does not want to do that, and Lori's attorney has said loudly that he definitely does want to do that. So there'll be a conversation about that, as well as the conversation about Chad's attorney asking for the whole damn thing to be thrown out.
I know. I cannot wait for
Yeah,
that hearing
yeah,
because I can just sort of hear Prosecutor Woods cackling.
yeah.
He won't. He'll crack a smile, maybe.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm dying to see what the response is to this.
Yeah, it should be good. So,
Mhm.
and some of you guys are saying that on the cemetery tour, you had a hard time hearing because of the wind. I
Yes.
know, and it sucks. And you know what really sucks? I spent an entire day last week, Wednesday, setting up a lapel mic and the whole situation because I knew the wind was going to be a problem, and it failed us. And so we ended up
Yeah,
having to battle the wind anyway. That is something we absolutely will fix before our next outdoor endeavor.
definitely. We're learning. We're
Yeah.
definitely learning. And one thing we forget because we live here and we're just used to it is that the wind always blows in Idaho.
Mhm.
There's this joke that Utah sucks and Idaho blows. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's really true. The wind never stops blowing here. So,
Never quits. Yep.
but yeah, we're pretty excited to see what's going to happen in these hearings. Just, I'm very curious
Yeah.
to hear the justification for joining the cases and not joining the cases and where that's all going to go. That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Plus, just the massive
Oh,
eye
for
roll that's going to
sure.
come out of the request to drop all the charges against Mr. Chad Daybell. That just is cracking me up.
Yeah. I'm loving it. So, yeah, Kimberly says Chad and Lori are a match made in hell. Aren't they, though?
Truly, they are.
Well, and,
Truly, they are.
we've covered this case extensively, and we haven't caught a whole lot of blowback except for from a few other YouTubers that were just mad because we had information they didn't, but, that
Yeah.
was whatever. But I read some really disturbing stuff today in the Morphew case, the
Mm,
Suzanne Morphew case.
yes.
That some of the YouTubers that have really covered that one in depth, and I'll tell you guys, I have followed that case deeply and have felt absolutely no desire to cover it publicly. I just
Mhm.
haven't. However, some of the YouTubers that have covered it in depth have been receiving some pretty serious death threats that the FBI has had to get involved in.
Good heavens.
Some YouTubers have deleted their accounts or deleted all of their episodes. They have some of them have just completely walked away from this. So
Wow.
really wild stuff happening with that Morphew case. Yeah. Anyhow, so I don't know. That one really that kind of grabbed me today, thinking, wow. I mean, I guess we've been lucky in that we've gone deep within the Daybell case and have, again, caught very little blowback. But
Mhm.
wow, the Morphew case has gotten pretty serious, pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Wow, I had not heard that. I wonder who is
Yeah, behind that.
behind that. Yeah.
Well, see, there's the big, a lot of people really think that her husband is behind her disappearance and
Mhm.
his and some of his friends, and so that's kind of the going theory. But I don't want to say too much.
Right, and maybe that's it. I
Anyway,
mean, with the Daybell case, it's a little
so
different because
crazy.
the perpetrators are in jail, so it's not like they're going
Uh-huh.
after anybody. They don't really have that opportunity.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah. So DB says they had the same saying in Texas that Texas sucks and Oklahoma blows.
Ah,
So now you know.
well, and somebody said in Colorado inhales.
Uh-huh.
True, true. I love it.
Oh, Glowing Ember wants to know what was some of the info on Chad and Lori's that others didn't have. Okay. The episode that really rocked the boat, that
Yeah.
really made some people mad.
Mhm.
This is the only one that we've caught much on, was the episode about the potential of them having a seventh victim.
Yeah.
And what happened is that we got a lead from an anonymous source. Well, a source we're protecting, of course, right?
Mhm.
And I reached out to several people that I know that live in that direct area to find out, to see if that was what was being said. And everyone I talked to said, "Oh yeah, that's exactly that's what everyone's saying out here,
Mhm.
within that area." So the theory is that there's a seventh victim,
Right.
that Chad had a neighbor that was a follower of his, he and his wife, and that it's possible that he saw something the day that Tylee was buried.
Mhm.
He died from a pulmonary embolism just a few days after Tylee was buried.
Yeah, and if that sounds at
And
all familiar, it's because there are some other people who died in a
yeah,
very similar way in this case.
yeah. Yes, and then so that's what we were talking about, is that the neighbors and the ward members, that's kind of the scuttlebutt out there, is that they're really speculating that perhaps he saw too much
Yeah.
and this is what happened. We laid that information out as carefully as we could. Carefully, we didn't give the location of his home. We didn't even give his exact occupation. Like, we tried to not be too, we weren't trying to sick the world on his widow or anything like
No,
that.
we really were trying to not identify them by
Yeah.
name.
But apparently there was a YouTube or a Facebook group that had been also speculating on this, who kind of felt like they owned that information, and they were super mad at us for spilling it.
Yeah.
We didn't get it from them. It came from an anon or, from a source. It came from a source. And then again, I verified it with so many people, like it wasn't really a secret,
No, it
but it
wasn't,
wasn't
but
something
nobody
that
really
anyone else
talked
had
about it
discussed. Yeah.
publicly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So anyway, we caught a little hate on that one, but there was 2 parts on that episode. Actually, there were 2 things that really made people mad. In that episode, we also had shared an email that Chad wrote, talking about kind of some of his end of days prophecies and visions and things.
yeah.
And he referred to the Mormons as the saints.
Yes.
And we said, because you've probably noticed in the Daybell stuff, a lot of times we'll break down the Mormonisms, because a lot of the terminology that's used, the way they, things that are said, sometimes you guys don't understand what they mean unless you have a background in Mormonism. And so we always
Right.
break that stuff down. So we had said in the video that Mormons sometimes refer to themselves as the saints, which
Yeah.
is 150% true.
Well, it's
Uh, you
literally in the
know,
name, The Church
yeah,
of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Latter-day Saints.
Saints.
When we were kids, our grandpa called the church the Saints. That's all he called them. Like,
Mhm.
that's just known fact.
Yeah.
That was the other one that really pissed people off. It was the same people that were mad about breaking the neighbor story, but for some reason, that really upset people. I was very surprised. I had no idea that would be the thing that people came after us for.
Me too, because we grew up with that terminology so much, living in this area that I was like, "Well, duh, that's, pretty
Yeah.
obvious," but
Well,
I mean, whatever.
apparently it's not. We were accused of being liars, that we obviously don't know anything about the church, if that's what we think, which is hilarious because, you know, we have a deep background in the LDS church and ancestry, and, it's whatever. Like, I don't need to have a scripture battle with them, but,
Right.
it just makes me laugh that made people so mad.
Yeah, I know, it was very interesting. You just
Yeah.
never know, but, we haven't had to
Yeah.
involve the FBI in any death threats, so let's just say that's good news.
Right, yeah. So, really, I think we're batting 1,000, truly. But
I think we are. I think we are.
yeah, so here it is.
Yeah,
So there you go. Now we aired all our dirty laundry.
we did. There you go. Okay, so
Yeah.
the other update we wanted to talk about was an update in the Samuel Little case. So you may know this name. I assume you probably do if you're interested in true crime. Samuel Little is believed to be probably the most prolific serial killer in the United States who's been caught.
Mhm.
And just recently, a 30-year-old woman who is named Patricia Parker has been identified as one of his victims in the early 80s. It's so insane what's going on with Little. Since 2018, he has been confessing to an unbelievable number of murders. Like, they're up to about 93.
Yeah.
It's so many of them, most of whom he did not know their names. And he does have kind of this scary good memory, like super creepy scary good memory, in that he draws portraits of women that he murdered. And the FBI has actually been using those to try to help identify unidentified dead women. And they did identify Patricia Parker. This just quite recently. They actually, based on some of the things that the situation around her death and what Little had told them, they determined that it probably is one of his cases, that this is probably one of his victims. They found remains in Dade County. He had taken her from Chattanooga and then killed her in Dade County, Georgia.
Wow.
They did a forensic reconstruction of her face with her skull and put that out there, and her family actually identified her from that. And they did some DNA and proved that it is, in fact, Patricia Little. And so at least, one more in his horrific run of murders has been identified. At least her family can bury her and know what happened to her. Little targeted women that were from vulnerable groups. And so, sex workers, addicts, stuff like that. He really believed that he wouldn't ever get caught because he didn't think anybody cared about these women. Like, no one's looking for them. No one's going to care. No one's ever going to catch him. And, it took him forever to get caught. This is what kills me about him, okay? He's been murdering since the 70s. Up to around 2005. He was actually finally arrested and convicted in 2012, and he's now been convicted of 8 murders, has 8 convictions, serving 8 life sentences. But he got away with a lot for a long time. He went to prison in 1961 for breaking into a furniture store. By 1975, he had been arrested 26 times in 11 states for crimes like theft, assault, attempted rape, fraud, and attacks on government officials. And I mean, this is by 1975, and this guy was still walking free. In 1982, he got arrested and charged with the murder of Melinda Rose Lepre. And the grand jury did not indict him, and so he went free on that case.
Wow.
Let's see. Sorry for my dogs. I do not know what they're doing right now other than barking their fool heads off.
Someone must have had the nerve to walk past your house. Probably.
And then again, let's see. He got off again in 1984. Let's see. This was Patricia Ann Mount, whose body was found in September of 1982. A witness identified him in court as a person who had spent time with her on the night before her disappearance. But there was distrust of this witness's testimony. They didn't find them credible, so they let him go. That was in 84, okay? So he just keeps on murdering. They know for sure he continued killing women up until 2005. And they haven't had any confessions since 2005, although he was not arrested until 2012. But he has murdered around 93 women. He has drawn some of the creepiest looking portraits of women whom he has killed.
Yeah, I'm going to share a few here with you guys.
Yeah, I do, because they're, wow.
Yeah.
Yikes. He is 80 years old now and in pretty poor health and is, obviously not going to, serve a whole lot of time for the things that he's done. I mean, they keep convicting him, and 3 states have convicted him of 8 murders, but there are actually 19 states with cases against him. It is insane. Completely insane. But to think that twice the legal system had him, and had they kept him, had they held on to him, you think about how many women would have lived.
Right.
It's pretty awful to think that on those 2 different occasions that he got off, if they had been able to convict him, how many women would have lived. Yeah, so Katie's showing some of the
Yeah.
portraits. So the FBI discovered in 2018 when he started making all these confessions that he likes to draw. So they started providing him with drawing supplies and asking him to draw pictures of the women that he had murdered in hopes that they could actually literally use some of them to identify as victims, which has worked.
Right. Right. Well, because he didn't know their names, but he knew their
No,
faces.
he would come
It's
up behind him and,
interesting.
conk him on the head and then strangle him and rape him. I mean,
Mhm.
he didn't know who any of them were. If you
Well,
look
Glowing Ember said he must have had a photographic memory.
yeah, yeah,
Indeed.
apparently he has this scary good
Yeah.
memory, but it's hard to remember someone that you didn't even actually know their name. You just came up behind him to murder him.
Yeah.
So bizarre.
I would
Such
be curious to know because most of them, he has them dressed in a specific color. I'd just be curious to know if that was actually what they were wearing when they died.
right? I know, I've wondered that, like, how specific in detail are these?
Yeah.
There's this giant list of his victims that are basically roughly give at least the year that they died and, maybe a location or at least a state and possibly a city,
Mhm.
um, and maybe a first name. A few of them have a first name. A few of them just kinda have a weird nickname, and then some of them have, like, specific, like, full names, like, these were people that he actually did know,
Uh-huh.
but most of them, are identified as unnamed Black female or unnamed Hispanic female. It's just unbelievable to
That's
me that he
horrific.
that
Well,
he
it's so
oh, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
Just that he worked under the radar for that long.
Right. Well, and that he wasn't under the radar and wasn't prosecuted. That's
No,
just
my gosh, he was
unfathomable.
arrested all the time, but what was happening is, I mean, this is in the 70s and the 80s, and he's traveling between states. And at that time, there wasn't a great setup for law enforcement to communicate with people, with other law enforcement in other states. And
Mhm.
so he could go commit all kinds of stuff in one state and then go to another state, and the other states wouldn't know about him. Now
Right.
the systems are all national and you can look people up, and it's way better than it used to be. And so
Right.
now he wouldn't get away with that, but because of the time frame that he was so active, is a big part of why. I mean, he was
Yeah.
also traveling all the way across the US. He was 19 states,
Yeah.
from Georgia clear to California and back. He's in
Yeah.
prison in California.
Yeah.
Just wild. But they're slowly, desperately trying to identify as many of his victims as they can and get as much information out of him before he dies. I mean, he's 80, he's in prison, he's not in good shape. And so they're trying to get at least closure for as many of these victims' families as they possibly can.
Mhm.
Can you imagine what a daunting task this must be
No.
for the FBI investigators that are trying to figure this all out?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
It's unthinkable.
They believe that they have linked 50 murders to him,
Mhm.
but he has confessed at least to
Yeah.
93. It's just
Unreal.
unbelievable. Just yeah.
Yeah.
Just and
So
I've read about him before. I
yeah.
was familiar with him before, but this came up in my Google alerts that they've identified another of his victims so that at least her family
Yeah.
has some closure.
Yeah. I just shared a side by side of one of the pictures he drew versus who the victim was. I just thought that was interesting to actually get to see a
It's
peek at.
surprisingly accurate, isn't it?
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Glowing Ember says, "Wasn't it the Bundy case that got Ellie to begin sharing information from one state to another?" Yes, it is. Yeah, it
Yeah.
finally dawned on law enforcement that, people were they had criminals traveling across state lines and not communicating. And there was a time when there was
Yeah.
quite a bit of hostility between states not
Yeah.
communicating. And
Mhm.
finally, people figured out that they had to do that. It was also the invention of computers and the internet that really helped with it as well, that these big national databases can exist so that people can see um, that you know, what's going on with people in other states.
Mhm.
Because he lived pretty much as a transient. And so he
Yeah.
was just traveling from state to state, living in homeless shelters. He did a lot of shoplifting and other kinds of theft, and that's how he supported himself. And he'd just kind of blend in and move on, you know, and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then, you know, unfortunately, he was murdering women that, because of their circumstances, maybe weren't missed immediately,
Yeah.
weren't necessarily using their real names. People didn't necessarily know exactly who they were. Maybe they were not in the state that they were from, and so it's been difficult to identify them.
Mhm.
It's just an insane situation.
Yeah, it is. It's unbelievable.
I mean, I will say that I am very grateful that now he has at least spoken up so that people can get some closure.
Yeah.
I can't imagine going 40 years having lost a family member like that and not knowing anything about what happened to them,
Exactly.
like Patricia
Exactly.
Parker's family. You know, that's
Yeah.
horrible. That's torturous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Glowing Ember says, "Is this girl a verified victim, the one you're showing?" She is, isn't she?
She is a verified victim. Yep.
Yeah.
Her name is Denise Brothers. She was killed by Little in 1994 when she was 38.
Wow.
Yep.
That is wild. But yeah, that picture, the picture he drew and the photograph of her are shockingly similar.
Yeah. Yep. What a weird brain this dude has.
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess he kinda has started to have a little bit of guilt. One of the things that he said is that there are probably numerous people who have been convicted and sent to penitentiary on my behalf.
Uh-huh.
I say, if I can help get somebody out of jail, you know, God might smile a little bit more on me.
Uh-huh.
And so that's why he's revealing this now, is
Mhm.
the idea that, you know, you think about there could be lots of wrongfully convicted people out there
Mhm.
convicted of his crimes.
Yeah,
But
for
that's what he's
sure.
guilty about. I mean, he should be guilty about all of it. But
Yeah.
it's kind of a weird, like, that's his concern.
Mhm. Yeah. So it looks like actually nearly all of his victims were Black or Hispanic, but there
Yes,
were a few white women thrown in,
there were, yeah,
but
because he
nearly
was pretty
all, yeah.
opportunistic. I mean, whoever he could grab quickly.
Mhm.
I mean, he did actually kill, a Black transgender woman also.
Oh, did he?
Mhm. That was Marion or Marianne, that was in the early '70s in Florida. I don't know that that one's been identified yet, but so
That's
a
a hell
lot
of
of
a
it was
case.
about opportunity.
Mhm.
Because he did kill, you know, mostly we're talking about women in their early 20s, but there are a few older women in their 40s and 50s as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it did seem like, you know, he kinda had a preference, but at the same time, he would take what he could get.
Yeah. Wow. That's a hell of a case. Yep.
It is. It's like you could cover Little for a year,
Yeah.
you know, easily.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then where would your brain be?
Right? Oh my gosh, to delve into all of these, it's wild.
Mm, it is.
Glowing Ember says, "Selfish reasoning for admitting his guilt, so God will show mercy on him. What about those serving time for his crime?" Right, it's still
Yeah.
very self-serving. The whole thing is very
Mhm.
self-serving, just about him personally, you know, that maybe this will make things better for him. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it just tells you what kind of a psychopath he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whew.
Definitely.
Feel like I
Yikes.
need
What
some
a
brain
case.
bleach after that one.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, that's it is, thank goodness there is, well, I mean, with the internet now, I mean, it's made everything so different and law enforcement in general, but yeah, thank goodness at some point law enforcement started cooperating across state lines like that or
yeah.
yikes.
Right. I mean, we can hope that something like this can't happen again.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can hope. You know, I don't know. It
Yeah.
seems like there seems to always be a way, and some people just have the ability to just kind of blend in too. And I feel like
Yeah.
this guy did. He just had that
Mhm.
ability. He just knew how to blend in, and he didn't
Mhm.
really stand out in this way. I mean, he did, in that he was just kind of a petty criminal, but that may be why, that he wasn't seen as being something more sinister.
Yeah.
Just gross. That's all
Mm.
I got to say.
Well, it's interesting when you look at profiles of serial killers, but we'd like to think we have an idea of who they would be, but we really don't.
No.
I mean, there's some markers, but it's really interesting. I was thinking about the case that we did. Oh, it might not have been for YouTube. It might have been for Patreon. I think it was a femme fatale case we did, but
Hmm.
the gist of it is that it was a serial killer out of Mexico, a female serial killer
Oh, the wrestler.
who yes, who was yeah, she was a Mexican pro wrestler. She
Hmm.
was a professional lady by day and a serial killer by night. She totally blended in. She didn't meet any kind of criteria for thinking
No,
she would be a serial killer, and she
not at
killed
all.
close to 50 women,
Yeah, she
elderly
did.
women. That was her mark, was elderly women.
It was. Yeah. You want to know more about her? Join us over on Patreon.
Yeah, I think that's
Because
a good idea.
that is a case we did for our Patreon. So if you don't know what Patreon is, it's a way to help support what we do. You can
Mhm,
make a small monthly pledge, and for that you get some free content.
mhm,
And we did a femme fatale case last month, and she was one of them that
mhm.
we covered.
Yeah, yep. Oh,
Uh,
wow. Glowing Ember says, "Did you know Trisha Griffith of Web Sleuths was approached by Ted Bundy as a teenager? He tried to get her to go to his car to give directions. Soon after, that girl escaped in the girl that escaped in Utah occurred." Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. We actually have a friend, a colleague, who got in Ted Bundy's car as a hitchhiker
yeah.
and
Ted Bundy
didn't
was actually
know.
active in the area of Idaho where we live.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this happened in Colorado, but yeah, got in with
Oh,
him
oh,
as
right.
an astrologer friend of ours got in his car in the 70s, and Ted Bundy said to him, "What would you do? Or how did you know I'm not a serial killer or something?" And he said something along the lines of, "I think I'll take my chances. I'm a pretty big guy." Well, then years down the road, but he always kind of stuck with him that that dude was creepy and,
Hmm.
but he hitchhiked quite a bit actually. But down the road, then he discovered, holy Moses.
That was Ted
He
Bundy.
sees him in the news and realizes that was Ted Bundy, and
Yeah.
he actually had asked him, "What would you do if you thought I was a serial killer?" or something along those lines.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I had forgotten
crazy.
about that story. That is wild. That is totally wild.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Wow.
Have you ever heard about the guy who held women with a box? No.
Oh,
Oh,
Colleen
Colleen Stan.
Stan.
Look
We'll
up the
look
case.
that one up.
We will. Yeah. Yeah,
We will
for sure.
definitely look that one up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you all joining us tonight. That's our update for tonight. We want to
Yeah.
remind you, though. Do you want
Yeah.
to remind them?
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow night at 8 PM Mountain Time, ish. Sometimes we're a few minutes late, and that's usually my fault. I'll admit it right now. But if it's not a tech problem, it's a hair problem or it's something else. But anyway, uh, we'll be back for our new show that we're doing on Thursday nights. This is our the psychic hour with us on Thursday nights. So some
Yeah.
of you guys are here for true crime. Some of you are here for our psychic work. Some of you are here for whatever we're doing.
Hmm.
If it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But that's the night that we'll do. We'll talk about some metaphysical topic, and then we'll do readings from the chat. So
Yep.
we started this last week. We issued marching orders for October. It was super fun. We had a really banging chat. We had a great time. So
We did.
you
It was
guys, if that
awesome.
resonates with you, come back. It's going to be great. So tomorrow night, and keep an eye out because we have some really fun content coming from our cemetery tour.
Yeah.
We did find a 100-plus-year-old cold case that we're going to work on with you
Yep.
guys. So that's going to be super fun
Yeah.
and
That's
interesting.
going to be really fun. So, and
Yeah.
thank you. You're all talking in the chat. Not our friend is not even the only one to have had a little
Yeah.
um a little
Yeah.
interaction with Ted Bundy. That is just scary.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're all
Absolutely.
okay.
Right? Glowing Ember said, those hair and makeup people can really put creators behind, can't they? Yes.
Oh, if we really had him, it'd be great.
Well, it's usually my teenage daughter who looks at me and goes, "Did you brush your hair?" Well, yes. Oh, w why? Does it look like I didn't brush my hair? No, I was just wondering.
Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
to be 17 and have perfect hair.
Right. 17 and have perfect hair. No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We are True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. And please stay tuned. We've got lots more great content coming up. Have a great night, guys.
Take care, guys. Thanks.